Welcome, Bert, Beans, and Chili present How to Dig a Shitter.
Most of us know when you're out in the woods by yourself and you need to take a poo, you gotta dig a cat hole. That's a small hole about 1 foot wide, 6 to 8 inches deep, where you do your business and then you make sure you cover your poo and your paper with the organic layer of soil so those bacteria can break down your poo.
Then, of course, you renaturalize your cat hole, disappearing it, completely making it traceless.
But today I'd like to talk about what do you do when you're in the woods with a whole bunch of people. How do you deal with your poo in that case? Let's say maybe 74 people or less. What do you do with your poo? Let's have a little conversation about that. How do you dig a shitter?
We model our shitters after military slit latrines shitters, right? I say it's very important you don't want it too narrow and you don't want it too wide. So some people say the head of a shovel is a good width to do it.
What would you say are some of the advantages of a narrower shitter?
Well, the advantages of a narrower shitter is there's less likely that you're going to fall in, because you don't want the trench to be too wide for you to squat over it.
The reason I like a narrower shitter is if you start it shovel wide, it tends to get wider on the top anyway, just because of people stepping there and cave-ins, but you want to make it wider on the bottom. That provides a whole lot more space for poo.
Yeah.
Why would you consider having a slightly wider shitter, like maybe a 1.5 foot wider?
Well, a 1.5 foot wide shitter offers a couple of good things. First of all, the more space you have in your shitter, the more shit you can get in. So you're economizing because, the goal is to not have to keep digging shitters, but be more efficient with the ones you have. So if it's wider, you can basically just get twice as many shits in. Also, if your shitter is too narrow, sometimes your poop can go down the sides of the shitter, and people don't often throw ash or lime. They don't cover that part up, so the flies will go directly to that, which we don't want.
So what are the considerations for how deep a shitter should be?
First of all, you don't want to dig a shitter that's too close to the water table, and that can vary by location. The other thing is you want to leave at least a foot from the top when you stop shitting it in order to fill it in. So if you're digging a 2-foot shitter, you're only going to have 1 foot to shit in because you've still got to bury it 1 feet. So 6 feet is a good number. If you can get down, you don't want to go to the big roots. Shallow roots are okay, but you start getting into the big tree roots. They're not always quite 6 feet, but a lot of people say a shovel's handle is deep, and also nipple height. Because if you dig any deeper than nipple height, then you can't get out on your own. But you shouldn't be digging a shitter by yourself anyway.
How long do you want to make a shitter? What's the optimal length of a shitter?
I would say we usually like to do them 6 feet. I know that the military slit latrines, they say either 3.5 feet or 7.5 feet.
And also, it does definitely depend on your surroundings. We're trying to avoid roots and rocks and stuff like that. Where you might be cooking stuff, you don't want any surface runoff going down to your kitchen either. Once you've got some shit in your shitter, what do you do at that point to be ecologically sound?
Well, the term we use, which is very appropriate, is cover your shit. We do this in the form of either ash from our fire pits or lime if we don't have enough ash. If you don't have any of that, you can use dirt, but dirt takes up more space, and more space being taken up by dirt means less poops in the shitter, which means more shitters need to be dug. The order I like is ash. If you don't have ash, lime. If you don't have lime, dirt.
There's some other reasons and considerations for why you'd want to add lime or ash on top of your poo and paper. And what are those, and what's the best techniques for adding that?
Well, the first and biggest consideration is flies. If you completely cover your poop and your toilet paper with a thin layer, then the flies will not be able to get to it.
Again, what is the reason that we really do not want these flies on the poo?
If the flies go on your shit, they carry the bacteria from that shit. They also love food, so they're going to go to the kitchens and they're going to land in the kitchen. Then we are going to touch what they touched and ate what they touched, and then we are going to get sick.
Got it. So we want to avoid the shit to flies to food to you connection.
Yes.
What's a good technique to add ashes or lime to the shit?
We like to say a sprinkle. You're not necessarily pouring it, you're not shoveling it, you're sprinkling it, but you want to cover your shit completely, but it doesn't have to be that thick.
Right, and the flies, they are irritated by the ash or the lime, so they will stay off the poop. And one concern that I've noticed is that if there are roots sticking out of the sides of the shitter, you get dingleberries. Using a lopper to remove any branches coming out of the side of the shitter will help solve that problem.
But if not, and there are branches in there and a dingleberry or two get stuck, just focus your lime or your ash just a tiny bit on it. The whole thing is to cover it all. Also, if you don't want to use too much, because ash, when it gets wet from rain or urine, try not to pee in your shitter for this reason, it can pack it down and it can't aerate in the soil as well.
Great, and of course, if there is ash or lime missing from a shitter, go to the nearest camp where you can find some lime.
After you bury your poop with the dirt next to it.
Okay, and if you are purchasing lime for the purposes of covering the poo, what kind of lime do we actually want to buy?
Well, there are several kinds of lime that do different things. The ones that work the best for our needs is calcium carbonate and dolomite lime. You can buy them in garden stores. They're often called garden lime. But if you go to farm stores, it'll be agricultural lime, and it will be half the price.
Great to know. I know you've had some experience digging up old shitters. It seems like some people put things in the shitter that actually should not be put in there. But what kind of things have you found when you've dug up old shitters?
Yes. As you can imagine, everything you shouldn't put in a toilet and then some. We found sanitary napkins. We found tampons. We found wipes. Anything that isn't going to break down organically is going to be stuck in that soil.
Got it. Now, I know some people like their baby wipes or their sanitary wipes. Is there a kind that you can actually use and it will break down?
Well, some people may agree, some people may not, but there are 100% cotton, burnable, compostable,
plant-based
wipes that you can get. They cost more, so most people don't use them.
So what other kind of supplies would you need at a shitter, and how should you store them next to the shitter?
There are 3 primary things you need at a shitter. First, you need, as we've already talked about, something to cover your shit, which would either be lime or ash in our case. Then you obviously need toilet paper. And then the last thing is hand sanitation. So you need to either have hand sanitizer or the bleach water ratio.
Right, and a bleach water ratio of at least 50 parts per million sodium hypochlorite would be good for that. How do you store these things? For example, what's a good way to store toilet paper?
Yes, toilet paper should definitely be stored, even if rain isn't in the forecast. What works really well are coffee cans with lids.
And how about storing the ash or lime?
Ash or lime, similar. I like to put them into the plastic coffee cans. I like to put the lid on and then cut a little hole or poke a bunch of holes in so people can sprinkle the ash rather than pour the ash.
And a great way to store your bleach solution is just to store 1 gallon of water plus 1 teaspoon of 6% sodium hypochlorite bleach in a 1 gallon clear jug. Put the cap on, cut a few holes in the cap, and you've got a dispenser and a storage container.
Or hand sanitizer.
Excellent. Now, what kind of signage would you need at a shitter to remind people of what they need to do? I think the most important sign is the basic how to poo sign. 1, squat over trench. 2, shit. 3, sprinkle ash or lime on all exposed poo and paper to completely coat. And 4, sanitize hands.
I definitely like signs at a shitter just to remind people. Like I just said, sprinkling on your poop and toilet paper is better than burying. You just need to cover everything completely, and it makes the ash and the lime last a lot longer. And another good sign is if the shitter is out of lime or ash or toilet paper or hand sanitizer, go to your nearest kitchen or whatever camp is associated with that shitter and locate those supplies and bring them back to the shitter for the next person.
Now, we've gotten to the point in our journey here where we want to close this shitter. So when do we want to close it? How do we close it? And what do we do?
You want to close it when you are at least 1 foot from the top of the surface is still empty. You go and reach into the pile of dirt that should still be next to you from digging the 4 foot, 6 foot shitter, however deep it is. And you want to pack that dirt in there to the surface level, and then you want to add at least another foot to mound it on the top because it's going to settle down.
Great, and last of all, of course, we're going to renaturalize the shitter, completely disappearing it, making it traceless, but it looks like we're out of time, so we're going to have to cover that in another episode.